Well, in a democracy, if enough people agreed, they absolutely could steal the money from them and give it to themselves. And as soon as people realize that they can just give themselves more and more free money, either from stealing it from other people or from taking it from the government that stole it from other people in one way or another, then they can, then they will almost always do that more and more and more, with one exception, and that's Argentina, where they eventually decided, no, we want something better because where we're going is not good. And so they elected Javier Milei, who seems to be doing some good things for that country. Good job, Argentina. Either way, that is, uh, that's one of the issues with that. And
Yep.
democracy, people are voting themselves more and more free money, and eventually it ends up, after
It,
that happens, it leads to it becoming an oligarchy every time that seems to happen. Go ahead, Ethan.
yeah, because if they just want more and more power for themselves, those people who try and get that to themselves, it will eventually develop into them basically leading the country, therefore them being an oligarchy. And if we
Eh,
want to really get into depth, we can also explain how usually with a monarchy, there might only be like one person, like a president or king, that is like presented out there as the one leader, but he usually has his, his round table, his boardroom, his advisors, his whatever you want to call them. He usually has a group of people that might be behind the scenes pulling some strings. So
So it
that would
takes,
also be an oligarchy.
right. And so both of those seem to lead to it actually being an oligarchy. And then what about that last one? We talked about a republic, but what about anarchy? Anarchy,
Anarchy, here, you go ahead.
yeah, frequently, or what seems to happen, at least according to the John Birch Society, which this seems logical to me, is they destroy whatever government is there, and then they decide, you know, uh, and they think, well, if government's the cause of all of these problems, then wouldn't our life be better off just without a government? Sure, that may seem great. And what about when they decide, when they can get power for themselves? Because what happens a lot of time is, well, now there's nobody there, and people will rush in and try and get the power for themselves. Frequently,
And
the
who's
people,
going to stop them from doing things that are illogical or wrong?
right, and then they get that power, and they frequently make themselves the king, or they turn into an oligarchy and them and their friends run the country, something like that. And so it seems like all of these things really lead to only two types of government: one where it's just a few people leading, and one based on laws and usually ethics. And well, frankly, I'm glad we have the type of government that we have.
Yeah, and didn't they set our republic up because we saw as too much government can lead to like a dictatorship. Uh oh, was that one of the governments? Never mind. We already talked about it. Let's just
Dictatorship
move
pretty
on.
much falls under the monarchy or the singular leader, which
That makes
frequently
sense.
has, like going
But
to Hitler and Nazi Germany, he had his group of people behind him. So, just like we were talking earlier, I don't remember the exact names, but same
it
thing
doesn't
applies.
matter. But yeah, it I'm pretty sure we tried to set up our the US as not too much government, but we had to have at least some government. We had to have some rules, at least a basis.
Yes,
Because again,
something.
if we were just a complete anarchy, then like you said, people would have too much power and or they didn't have anything stopping them from doing illogical or morally wrong things.
Right. Whereas with this, it our government was just set up to help protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as it states in the Declaration of Independence, I believe.
It's
It
supposed to be a government for the people, by the people.
Right. It's Here are some of the things that does, but it's just meant to be uh, loosely protecting us against certain things, uh, but not doing some of the massive amount of things that it does today. Uh, we seem to have gone way overboard in a lot of areas,
But
and that pretty much leads us to where we
it's
actually decided on the country that we were going to create,
yeah,
moving
but in the beginning, it had started as something small, something just to, set up as a boundary to create some things that were logical, some boundaries, so we wouldn't screw up the chance that we had, so we wouldn't fall into the same problem to become a country with a bunch of problems like we tried to escape from when we made the Declaration of Independence. And
right.
yet, shouldn't they have seen that, maybe we might evolve into that? Shouldn't they set up some boundaries to try and make it so we couldn't evolve into that? Right after this break, we will come back and tell you more about that.